All right, man. So you a black author? What gives with that?
What goes with that? I'm black. And then first I was black. That came
Uh-huh.
first, and
I
then I
imagine
was
that would be
author.
first. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it happens the other way. You never know.
He was like, I was there in the womb, pen in hand, notepad, scribbling it out. No pillow, no blanket. You want to go tonight?
We dropping bars still?
Oh, no, I think that's a Dave Chappelle reference.
Dave.
Oh no! It's actually not Dave Chappelle. I'm mixing up my black comedians. It's Kevin Hart. It's one of Kevin Hart's bits.
Nice.
Yeah.
It sounded like one of them.
Yeah. Kevin Hart, man. Oh God, Kevin Hart's a funny bastard.
Yes, he is. He is.
Him and Chappelle, man, two of the best comedians out there.
Yeah.
I really love those guys. Eddie Murphy was really fucking good too. Before he cleaned up.
Before he cleaned up.
Yeah. Yeah, his act. Yeah, I just think his humor got stale when he started trying to be PG.
Yeah, I get that. That is true. He was funny though.
Oh yeah. Like you can still go back. I can't remember what the special was called, but that special where he's wearing like the just a no shirt, an orange jacket, and some orange leather pants. I can tell by the smile, you know the one.
No, because I know, but I thought it was red.
It might be red. I'm partially colorblind, so it could be red.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, and for me, for a long time, colors that looked too close to each other, I got confused. So
yeah, that's part of my issue. Yep.
Yeah.
But anyways, to get back on track, yeah, being a black fantasy author in a traditionally white dominated market. Yeah, man, tell us about your journey.
Yeah,
all that good stuff.
I'll start. As a kid, I loved fantasy. It's sci-fi is what got me reading. I didn't distinguish the two though when I was a kid.
Understandable.
I wanted to. I loved going to different worlds. So I didn't read.
Same.
It was I was like I told you I was on hooked on phonics as a kid, and so I picked up Kay Applegate's The Animorph series. I'm in the 3rd grade from Scholastic Book Fair, and that's what got me reading, despite everything that my parents tried prior to that. And then I read. I mean, so I didn't really go through the I can read books because I wouldn't read them, but then I found that chapter book and I read the whole thing. So, so that's what got me reading. I read all of the Animorphs books until a certain point because I think there's like 1,000 of them now. I read Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings. A little bit older, I got Harry Potter, and Percy Jackson, all of that. And it dawned on me a little bit later, that there were no characters that looked like me, no leads that looked like me. It was always the best friend. It was always the sidekick. Now, and mind you, my writing journey coincides with my acting journey. So, I thought even in acting that all I really could play were the sidekicks or the background. So both of those, it's hard for me to separate those two because they coincide with each other so much. I had this mentality that I was relegated to the back.
Right.
And it was widely because that was just the way that I would have been portrayed in the show. I related with the character, with the fantasy character, and things like that. And even in college, I was advised, by some of my professors that, if I ever wanted to be successful in acting, I should take up Shakespeare because it's the only place that the color of my skin wouldn't be taken into account. which sucked. So that was the experience that I had. When I picked up this book, the Caleb Andrews Chronicles, I wanted to write a story where kids could see a character. Kids that looked like me could see a character that looked like them. So I was very passionate about writing I was very passionate about not writing a black story. I wanted to write a story that had a black lead.
Yeah. And I think that's the preferable way to do it.
Yes. So that's where this got into. I mean, where it was just a story, because we have stories, and it's not every story is a story about struggle. Not every story is a story about rising from the ashes or overcoming unimaginable odds or unlikely odds or whatever it's going to be. I just wanted to write a story like any other story that you can write, but just so happened to have a black character, a black lead. So
what's funny about that, just as a quick aside, you ended up doing all those things you just described, but from the more typical angle of a protagonist. He still has these monstrous, epic fantasy struggles. It's just none of them, like you said, are the quintessential, stereotypical things that a black protagonist would deal with. They're
not after him because he's black.
Right, exactly. He's not struggling because he's in the inner cities or something. Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to do. And then, as we started to develop the stories, one of the lines that was put in later that I actually really love is just at the end of the book when he's sitting next to, I won't give any spoilers away, but he's sitting next to Aiden at the river, and he's looking at the reflection, and he says, "He looks like me." I didn't realize how much I needed that. Like, I didn't realize how important that was to me. And it's one of those things that right there was what it was. I didn't realize what I was missing until I realized it. So that,
yeah, that was a powerful line. I remember reading that, and I was like, it was an instant callback to the conversation we'd had when we were screening you for the show. And that's one of those things where authors get the chance to put their own voice through the narrator into the story, like something that is the author's perspective and experience, and it was seamlessly threaded like a thread going into a needle from the author's brain through the narrator's voice into the story. Very well done.
Oh, let me tell you, there was pushback from me putting that in there. I had several conversations with my editor about what I wanted to accomplish with this book, with book one, and my editor was actually the one who said, "Well, you need to put that in there." And I said, I got scared. I said, I don't know how people are gonna. It's a small line. It's one line, but I was like, I don't know how people are gonna take that. I'm all of a sudden. What's that?
I was just gonna say, I think that their only reasonable way to take that is, with understanding. I think if someone got over that line, that would be incredibly small-minded.
Yes, I agree with you on that. I've gotten a little bit of pushback. Not a lot, and I'll tell that a little bit. But I was very frightened because I felt that people would accuse me of they would accuse me of pandering, or and it isn't about that, and I am, but it's important. These are things that are important.
Well, and see, you're not, in my opinion, respectfully, you're not pandering, because there's a firm difference between pandering to an audience
Yeah.
and speaking to an audience.
Speaking to
Pandering,
yeah.
pandering is that bullshit Hillary did, where she's like, "Oh yeah, I got hot sauce in my purse. I carried it." Bitch, no, you fucking don't. I don't believe you had hot sauce in your life, let alone you carry it everywhere with you to add to your food.
Yeah.
Not pandering. No one believes it, and you look like a racist bitch, because she is. Now moving on to your line in the book. That's saying something that a lot of people in your experience, because this is a lived experience that you share with a lot of people. That's a line that can be resonated with. That's a line that as soon as the character says it, the person is like, yeah, it really do be like that. And especially because the book is written towards a younger adult audience, late teens and early adulthood, it's especially effective to just say it in the plain, bare open language when you're talking about people who are in that age group.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any problem with that. And yeah, it really does. This is a issue I have to acknowledge over on my side, is there are a subsection of people over on my side who would read that line and they'd be like, "Oh, SJW trash," and it's like, no, you stupid bitch. It's a discussion of lived experience, and that's a perfectly legitimate thing to do, is discuss lived experiences.
Yeah.
It's how we grow understanding.
It comes from a line of thinking that any mention of race or culture is a negative thing, and not any mention is a negative thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got a comment recently. I got 2 comments recently that both of them I love because it shows how far I've come since the moment I've written that line. And the second one comes because it's exactly why I wrote this book. So the first one, I got one on an ad, a Facebook ad. The comment that was made, first of all, the initial comment wasn't even my comment. Someone saw my ad on Facebook and said, a black written book about a black boy. Don't mind if I do. The commenter replied, why do you have to bring race into this? I was going to recommend this to my son, or buy it for my son, but nope, I don't support separatism. So and I was like, I didn't even write that comment, but okay, that's fine. The thing is that I remember getting emotional and scared, like almost to the point of tears, when my editor said, "You need to write that line. You need to put that in there." I remember saying, "I don't know why I'm emotional. I don't know why I'm in tears right now, but I'm scared." And I was scared about getting responses like that. And I got that response, and my first thought was to laugh. Like, I wasn't scared. I wasn't upset. I wasn't hurt. I was like, and honestly, I wasn't even mad. I was like, you don't get it.
Yeah.
And I felt more sad that not sad for me, but sad for her, because she didn't get it. She didn't get it.
Yep.
The second comment I got on an ad was from a mother in London. And she responded and said, "We just finished the Percy Jackson series. And my son asked me, Mom, are there heroes like Percy who are black? I think he'll love this book."
Yeah.
And that one made me emotional. That's the reason why I did this.
Yeah.
The reason why I did this was so that those kids who love Percy Jackson, and I love Percy Jackson. I love his stuff. I love the Magnus Chase, series. I love how he writes. But for those kids who want a story just like that, who looks like them or who they can relate to, their hero.
Yeah.
I was happy to write that.
Yeah. I can imagine that'd be. I hope I get a a comment like that someday. That's great, man.
Yeah.
That's, and to call back to what I was talking about earlier, the job of storytellers in a society. You're doing it, man. That comment is
Mhm.
proof positive that you're meeting that standard of being a good storyteller and making a positive impact with the stories you're telling. That's what it's all about. And that is so fucking beautiful, man. It's
It's the
great.
reason I do this.
It's fucking great, man.
And not just Black kids, for all
Happy.
kids. Not just Black kids, for all kids, for anybody.
Absolutely.
That my story. In the series, you'll find all types of people, all types of people. And I've got story. I mean, just another kid came up to me and just asked one day when I was reading the book out of school, and he said, can anyone be a writer? And I was like, yeah. He said, doesn't matter how old you are. I was like, no, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. If you want to write a book. And he said, and he looked down, like it was recess time. I was like, you gotta go to recess. He looked down, he scuffed his foot, and he looked back up at me. He said, Mr. Wells, even me? And I was like, especially you.
Yeah.
So that's why you're absolutely right. It's the job of a storyteller. It's the job of an author. We do fantasy, yes, because we love other worlds. Yes, because we love to create characters. We love to go on those journeys, but to inspire people. That's why we write stories. So.
Yeah, and a healthy. What could be a healthier escape than something that inspires you?
Exactly.
It truly is. It's a service to humanity to be a good storyteller. You said something that brings up a question I wanted to get to, and that is, so you just said all kids need that to have that hero, and that leads me to the question of what your thoughts are, because there's a lot of to do about this in the writing community. Should white Europeans or people who don't have any interaction with other cultures write heroes and stories in other cultures? What are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, they should. They should write. I mean, and people might disagree with me. I don't care. But yes, we should all be writing stories that look like. We should all be writing all characters. We should all be including all characters in our stories. We should be writing stories that reflect the world around us. Now, the issue that I have with white, not I'm not going to generalize ever, but with some white authors who write other people, is that they're not interested in really writing other people's stories. They're interested in writing the way they think their story should be told. Yes. So I think that it's very important to listen. It's very important to ask for help. And not just ask, but like really listen and really, when you write something, send it out to sensitivity readers and ask, what do you think about this? And listen to what they say. And I mean, don't get defensive.
Exactly.
Be
ready to take critique.
Be ready to take the critique. Yeah. And if it's something that you really love, send it to a few people. Get the majority. Hear what the majority says, but really be open to listen.
Yep.
But I strongly believe in my series. I've got Black, white, Indian, Hispanic, Vietnamese, Chinese, and I try as much as I possibly can to be sure. Now, I've got a little bit of cheats because some of these characters only look that way, but they're from fantasy worlds. So
yeah.
But I do try as much as I can to get my sensitivity readers ask, what they have, and luckily I've got friends that look like each of those people. So, yeah.
And George R. R. Martin talked about how one of the best ways to create more diverse characters, not just in appearance, but being able to single them out individually as far as dialogue and be able to create fully realized people, is to exercise more empathy. So, do you think that if more authors strive towards practicing more empathy, that could take care of some of the issue?
Well, I would like to know. That's such a broad statement.
Mm-hmm.
Because what does that look like? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what does that look like to exercise more empathy?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It sounds nice, but
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? What does that mean to you, Kate?
Well, I mean, to exercise more empathy, as in taking other people's feelings about, you know, their representations and things like that into account, kind of the same principle of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So, presenting people as respectfully as
Mm-hmm.
possible and making sure that you're presenting people as realized people as opposed to just, ticking boxes for the sake of ticking boxes or
Mm-hmm.
creating caricatures.
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself. It's the golden rule. It's the first thing we learn in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
Is to do unto others as we do unto ourselves. Treat others like we want to be treated. Um, I I I'm big. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for empathy. um, we should we definitely should be. That's when I say listen. We should be listening to each other wholeheartedly,
Mm-hmm.
and not come in with the with you know our agenda in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're listening we're listening for what we want to hear.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Problem. Absolutely.
yeah, we're asking, um, you know, uh, do you want that pie with in hoping that they say no,
Right, yeah.
you know. Um, so I do agree. I think that it's very important. Um, I think that's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Is the first step is to treat everyone with empathy. The second step is to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
but
and when you say do the work, what do you think that looks like? Because when I think of doing the work to exercise proper empathy and writing other characters, I think speaking to people from that background, doing my history homework if I need to, finding out about their traditions so that I can represent their culture with accuracy. Because I think the most important aspect in being respectful of a culture is to be accurate,
yes,
especially with the important stuff. If it's an important tradition, you
hmm
better not fuck up the details
hmm
because the details are all important.
yep,
So, yeah, you think that's a pretty solid
yeah.
description?
You've hit everything that I would have said to do. You said that those are the things that I would have said to do. Speak with people, do the research if necessary. Respect the culture. Portray that culture with accuracy.
Yeah, and that's another place where people who aren't left of center sometimes hear that and they think, "Oh, here we go, another lecture." And it's like, no, 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 no.
hmm
Listen, I get it. It's a little insufferable when it comes from them, but there's a
hmm
nugget of wisdom there, and that is you need to be respectful when in Rome. And that's
hmm
ancient biblical wisdom when in Rome.
Yes.
Do as they do because it's a matter of fucking respect.
Respect. It is respect.
And
Um,
that's respect is a universal quality and thing that is held in esteem across every human culture. It looks different depending on the culture you're in, but the concept of respect is universal. So important.
100% agree. And that is the quickest way to piss me off is to disrespect me.
Yeah.
I am such like it is so hard to make me mad.
Mhm.
Like you get, I mean, it is. I don't get mad very easily. I might get irritated, but I don't really get mad. Um, I get mad when me or someone else is disrespected.
Mhm.
Um, don't like people deserve to be respected.
Yeah.
Just mean treat me like a person.
Mhm.
Um, and that's in the workplace. That's in the grocery store. That's like treat me like a person.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Now, I have a side to branch off a little bit.
I want
I have
what
a
you
side
said.
question. What was that? Oh, the water.
Well, I said I want what you're having.
Oh, so this is just water, but this is mead.
No.
Yeah.
So, but what I wanted to get to, I think this is a really interesting question, and I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Mhm.
Do you think it's better to have an all-white cast, or would it be preferable to get the one token character in there? What do you think?
Neither.
I get they're both bad, but I'm saying like if an author is incapable of exercising empathy, but they still insist on writing their book, which would you rather see them do?
That's a tough question. An author that is incapable of portraying empathy has already lost me.
Yeah.
Fair.
They if they can't even do the simple task as to go and talk to people and create worlds in which they are. I would say I'm not even mad at having a token black person, but that author in particular, don't try.
Yeah.
Why even try? And at that point, it's not about me as much as it is about them. It's like
Mhm.
I would rather them just go ahead and stay in their white supremacy and
Yeah.
and then to try to bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Plus-
flipping that around, oh, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
Kate. You
Well, I was just gonna say that plus that leans into other situations that you're going to see in their writing also, because they're not going to be able to write dialogue
Mhm.
that doesn't sound like everyone's sounding the same,
Yeah.
and other issues with that. So I mean,
Yeah. Absolutely.
now I want to flip that question around to another angle here. So let's take a story that exists entirely within one geographic region, and that's the reason the cast is ethnically monotone. What about that?
That is fair. I think that is a
Okay.
reason for it to be. However, there are areas that is used as an excuse often.
Yes.
Or
I agree with that.
particularly with geographic location and with time error, and there are a lot of places. There are other ethnicities.
mhm.
I mean, and as far, even when it comes to time, it's like, well, that wouldn't be true because it's 1860, and black people didn't exist in 1860.
It's like, but yeah, they did. It's like, what rock did you live under? Can you please crawl back under there?
There's
Black people. Isn't that thing that the Marxists invented when Michael Jackson was born?
Yes.
Bring me my Mountain Dew and my dip.
Exactly. Well, it's there's a limit, but I think that in a lot of time period things and a lot of geographic locations, depending on what the story is, what is the story, you know, um, but it's important to think to examine, why do I see this cast all white? You know,
Mhm.
is it because the story calls for this story for it to be all white, or is it because this is what I'm comfortable with?
Mhm.
And I think that's an important question to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think any decent author should be asking themselves questions like
Mhm.
that. Yeah, that's part of growing, not only as an author but just as a person. To
Yes.
ask yourself tough questions and say, "Am I avoiding doing this thing because it's outside my comfort zone?" And if the answer is yes, then that means you need to go do the thing.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
how you grow.
Yes, that's exactly basic way of growing.
Yep, and that's
Yeah.
that's the tea for people on both sides of the argument with things that they would typically be squeamish about. You got to
Mhm.
have for the easy thing to do is to first discuss the thing that you're uncomfortable with and gather as much information about it, and then go experience it. Uh,
Yes.
and of course, there's such a thing as healthy boundaries, but that's really getting into a separate and not directly relevant tangent because everyone knows what I'm talking about when I say things are good for your growth, and
Yeah.
everyone get
Yes. We
I'll say
have. Oh,
I'll say the one thing and not get on the tangent. But for a lot of people, healthy boundaries means staying in an echo chamber of their own opinion,
yeah.
Yeah,
and that's so dangerous.
agreed,
Mhm.
100%.
That's all.
Yes.
Don't build yourself an echo chamber. It's not good for
Exactly. I
no
mean,
one.
and
Just so
in the
and that's it. Yep,
yeah, in the long run, it will rot your brain. So.
facts. That yeah, the you could and you that applies across the entire sphere, and that includes what you read, being in an echo chamber of
Mhm.
literature. If all you read is fast food, right to market stuff, rots your brain. It's like
Yeah.
eating nothing but candy.
My mother is big on that. My mother is big um, on reading both sides, on reading, other things. Uh, my mom had me reading a worldview book when I was 9 years old.
Mm.
It was this big. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So I've got like the two thoughts I have is like, who do you think you were? Who did you think you were raising?
You know, she had it. Hey, I mean, mom's intuitions. You know.
High expectations, man.
Hey.
High
Hey.
expectations. They're usually better for kids than bad. So hey,
It's true.
nothing
It's
wrong
true.
there.
And now I've gone back and I've asked her if she could find that book because I'd like to have it. I'd like to read it again. I don't
Yeah.
remember anything that's in that book, but
It's back there in your
It's
subconscious.
somewhere.
but that's the kind of woman my mom is. That's the reason why I think the way that I do. And
Sounds like a good mom.
Yeah.
she's a great mom.
Oh man, we have an audience
Have an
question.
audience question. Thank
Ooh.
you.
You mentioned in Warrior Angel, if a character having a metal arm, are there disabled characters in your book?
That is such a great question. So you're right. The character having metal arm, that would make that character disabled. Unfortunately, that character is not one of the prominent characters in this book, and
Mhm.
because of the characters that I do have, and um, the lore and mythology that I'm working with at the moment, I do not have any disabled characters in the book. Um, but that's not to say that there won't be.
Mm.
But that's a great question. So thank you so much for asking that and actually putting that on my radar a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren, for the question.
Yes.
And that raises kind of a tangent discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, you're at least to some extent an own voice author. You know, you're writing a black protagonist. You yourself are black.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the obsession with own voice authors, do you think that that's gotten a little bit out of hand? Do you think that it's a highly valuable trend? What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
I think that most things in 2022 have gotten out of hand.
You're not wrong.
There's value to own voice authors, yes. I think that there's a long history of other people telling other stories wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, nope. Argument can be made there.
Yeah. That being said, I don't think the issue is with the story. I think the issue is with the effort, and it goes right back to what I said. I believe that we should all be striving to tell these stories because they're human stories.
Yeah.
Right.
So, or even elvish stories, or
They're just
stories,
standard for old wise humans.
Yeah, but we should all be striving to tell these stories, and I think own story is a cop out of saying, oh, I can't. That's the reason why I don't write any POC or LGBTQ or disabled stories because we think, oh, well, I can't relate to that, and the fact that we feel like we have to relate to something to include it when we write about dragons.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to argue your way out of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So,
go ahead, Kate.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, because I think the intention was good, possibly when it started, but it's one of those things that, all roads to hell are paved with good intentions. And eventually it just got out of hand because you had so many people who decided to jump on the bandwagon as an excuse to be casually cruel to people, instead of actually being, authentic about it.
Yes. I think I agree with you. I would have to know a little bit more of my history on that, because there are two ways to look at that. But I do think that I don't think that. Well, okay. Racism in and of itself is evil and cruel. That being said, it was a representation of the time, and I don't know. I guess that is something that I would have to look more at my history about, especially when I think about minstrel shows and blackface and how that rose, and because that's where it started. That's where it started, and it on one end, and my mentor, he would probably talk about this because we did have a conversation about this. It was, to tell stories, the black stories, that is a huge thing, but they couldn't have black people come up on the set because they couldn't mix that, and that wasn't allowed. So yeah, I think there's more history to learn on my part.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Everyone has more to learn.
Yeah.
Kate blows me so far out of the water on history and language. It's
my whole dream was basically to become a librarian, and I turned into a library instead. So
overshot that a little bit.
Yeah,
I
because
love that.
yeah.
So, Caitlin, did you have any prepared questions or anywhere you want to steer the conversation?
Well, I had some questions that were to more tethered to the book itself. Um,
And I have a few of those too. So, if John, if you're cool, with that we'll move more towards that area.
I love talking about the book.
Absolutely,
Okay.
I expected you'd be fine with it.
um,
Pull my notes up here.
and the first one was from earlier. You said that you wanted to talk more about why you left the time period ambiguous.
Yeah.
Yes.
For a few reasons. One, I didn't want to age out. Now there are things that definitely are, as I believe it was Lauren who pointed
Yes.
out, smartphones. All throughout the book there are references even to the posters on his wall and the laptop. But I wrote it. I wrote it.
You wrote it.
I wrote it.
You wrote it.
I wrote it.
I wrote it. I started writing this in 2008, and I intended for the book to take place in 2008. I started writing in college. I got distracted a lot, which is why it took me so long to finish. My second book did not take me that long to finish, but I intended it to be there. And then when I started editing and actually working towards publishing, actually saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to publish this."
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a hobby anymore.
Right.
I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be more to where we are now and grow from there. So I didn't know. I was like, well, I'll take out all the references to time and age, but I will say that now it is frozen. The book does happen. The book starts, in 2020, without COVID and all that stuff. That doesn't exist in that world, but it did. It yeah. That never happened
Right.
in the Caleb verse, but it is. It does take place in 2020, and all the books after that will take place after that time.
In subsequent years. Now you mentioned the Caleb verse. So I did notice that you had set up somewhat of your own mythos as far as like your takes on some more ancient things, and some of those I wondered if they were subconscious decisions or if you did that deliberately, like some of the symbolism, the fact that his 16th birthday is when the thing is going to take place. I'm not going to give spoilers here, but the fact that 1 + 6 is 7, and numerologically speaking, that tethers to 7 being the number of perfection, meaning he was ready. Was that on purpose?
I love all of that. A lot of things that are in the book were done on purpose. A lot of the mythology, a lot of my takes on mythology, a lot of the symbolism that I have in there, it was done on purpose. And some of those things were just happy accidents.
Okay.
So, and I don't want to say which ones were happy accidents and which ones were on purpose.
Oh man!
So plays his cards close to his chest.
Well, see, I mean, so that way we can just play it up for the audience to be like, yes, that was on purpose. See?
Yes. All of it was on purpose.
I was doing it all along.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing.
On my level.
I'll say this. I write for the super fan. I write for the super fan. I write for those who, when they look at, and I told my editor, I said, I want to write for the second reader. So when the people who go back and they're reading it through a second time, they'll pick up on things that aren't there, that that are there, that they wouldn't have noticed without having known the context of it
Mhm.
all. So I definitely write for the superfan, who will
Yeah.
look at that and scrutinize all of my words and say, "Yep, see, you know."
Yeah.
I shit you not. I respect you doing that so much
Mhm,
because I've always been a huge believer in stories that do that being much.
mhm,
Frankly, that's one of the things that makes a good story.
mhm.
I set up things on page 1 that get paid off in book 3.
Yep. Yes. Yes, and it's fun. It's fun to uncover those things as well. Some of those things are there because you knew exactly what it was, and there are certain things where I will have conversations with. Look, I talk to my editor every single day. He's gone over and beyond what an editor should be doing. He's my editor, my coach, my mentor,
Mhm.
um, and I talk to him every single day. And we go back, and I'll have read something. I said, "Hey, I said this here," and we're working on book 3 right now, and I was
Yeah.
like, and that line aligns like 100% with what this says right here. He's like, so like I said, some things are accidents, but
Mhm.
most of the times things are accidents. Uh, it baffles him.
Mhm.
It's things that it are things. It's things that he's like, you just wrote that, and you didn't know that you were going. You didn't know that you were going to tie that together. Um, and that strongly comes just because the way that I see the story.
Mhm.
The difference between he and I is that he sees story in bullet points, which I suck at. I see story in film,
Mm. Mhm.
yeah, live and in action. So
That's an interesting distinction to make.
Mhm.
And Caitlin can speak to this. When I do my outlines, I do them in bullet point,
mhm.
and when I actually write, that's when I start seeing it in film. I make my bullet points, and I know all the things that have to be in there, and then I completely freeball everything in between those. And that's the part, the freeballing while I'm sitting there and
Mhm.
I'm typing. That's when I can see it in my head and everything that's going
Yeah.
on.
I'm a firm believer in plotting. Don't get me wrong. I do plot. I do write my bullet points. I do that, but it's difficult for me. It is difficult for me because for me, I see these scenes, and you can say something to me, and all of a sudden, I'm triggered, and I have a
Mhm.
scene in
Yeah.
my head. Um, the problem is that not every scene belongs in the book, and
Yeah.
Common problem.
yeah, so that's the biggest thing is that so I do have to outline. I have to outline, or else my book will take me 10 years, like the first book. And my first draft of the first book, I tried to put everything in there, and it wasn't good. If you could
Mhm.
read the beta reader reviews of my first draft, you would laugh. And I laugh at myself because I literally tried to put everything in there, um, just because there was
Yeah.
there was no logic to it.
Mhm.
I just this is cool.
Right. Yeah. You're like I can pants this, and this. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this will be what we used to call in the biz a Sound of Music piece of fiction, because it was literally all of the person's favorite things, and that was just all it was, and they
Yeah.
were married to every last bit of it.
Oh man. Yeah. No, you gotta let go of some of those ideas.
Yeah. Oh man, but I have one last question, and then Zach, if you want to ask the rest of your questions. So, since you have sort of established your own mythos, are you going to use it in other areas of your fiction, or is it just going to stay relegated to the Caleb verse, as you call it?
I likely will stay. I likely will stay. I'll stay in the Caleb verse as long as I have stories to tell in it. That's
Mhm.
probably not true either, because there's so many stories to tell in the Caleb verse. I don't know. I've got other stories that I think probably wouldn't fit. Unless I don't. I want. I have sci-fi stories eventually that I want to tell, but I right now I've got so many stories in this universe that I don't know. I could be in this universe for the next 20 years,
Mm.
uh, and and be fine with it. I'm working on a short right now that is that takes place before the Caleb Andrews
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Chronicles.
you've set up a lot of prequel potential. You could do
Yeah.
series of
Yeah.
novels on this on what's happened before this one, for
Oh
sure.
yeah. So um, I wish I had a more definitive answer for you, but yeah, I don't really know. Like I said, there's a lot that I can do in this universe, so
Mhm.
I might be in it for a while.
Okay.
I know exactly how you feel. That's how I feel
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's a especially when you're writing, because you know all the background, you know all the stories, um,
Yep.
and I mean the story that we're writing, like you said, there's so much potential. I stupidly chose a story that spans all of time.
Yeah. Those are the best stories. God.
I'm
If
like,
your story doesn't start at in the beginning, I don't want
yeah.
Oh, I feel
it.
like, yeah, it's like, is it even a story if it
Is it,
doesn't,
you know,
run the same gamut as just all of time?
all of time. It it it's something that an argument that we have often when I get frustrated that my second book took me 8 months to finish rather than the 6 weeks that I wanted to do it in,
Yeah.
and um and Douglas, my editor, my mentor, he says, you wrote a story that spans all of time. What do you expect?
Right. Yeah.
What do you expect? So it's I'm working on it though. I mean, I'm getting faster.
Hmm. Well, I mean, that's the key to doing this is doing it more and doing it better, and eventually, you get faster because it wasn't only, you know, and I've been in this business for about 16 years, and I started out as a ghostwriter, and I didn't get to where I was able to, finish a manuscript in a couple of weeks to a month
Hmm.
until just within the last few years
Yeah,
because it just, you know, you have to find your rhythm.
yeah. And with each book, I'm getting closer and closer to that rhythm. I'm able to see a little bit more. First book was a learning curve. Second book, we started it. I did a light outline and got 100 pages in and realized I was writing the wrong story and
Yeah.
started over. So it was the second book is called The Heir of Ambrose,
Mm.
and I wasn't writing The Heir of Ambrose when I started, and we looked at the outline for that. It's 100% not the outline for the book that wrote that I wrote. But I started off with two factions of people that
Hmm.
were supposed to be, fighting with each other. I called it the feud of the Mercenade,
Hmm.
and I got 100 pages into that, and I said, "It's not about the feud.
Hmm.
It's about Ambrose." this whole book is about Ambrose. I should be writing the Year of Ambrose. So I went back and I rewrote the 100 pages and kept moving.
Yep. I had a similar experience with the book 3 outline where I was like, I'm actually going to change this pivotal plot point, and that means everything downriver of it has to be changed.
Yep. Yep.
Now, more to the nitty gritty. This isn't really a question. This is just kind of a comment I wanted to make on a line in the book. Its ragged cloak was made of swirling ethereal shadow. I just wanted to comment on that line because it's so simple but so good. Swirling ethereal shadow. I instantly get this picture in my head of this villain standing there, a magic cloak made of darkness, strands and waves of darkness rippling off it and sinking back in. And it's just so succinct and punchy. Good job. I just wanted to comment on it.
That's exactly what I wanted you to see. So I love it when I hear a response and a description. That's exactly what I'm trying to portray. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. I know as a writer, we love hearing that shit. So
yes, it's like I did it.
I did it.
You'd be like, take that, English teacher.
Yes.
I told you I could write good. I do it so good.
I can do it.
With my words.
And my blood and bone pokies.
And my blood and bone pokies.
My blood and bone pokies.
Yeah, that's another. That's way back in me and Caitlin's beginning of our content making. Anyway, and then this other thing I had here. So at one point you censor the phrase "resting bitch face," and in the book you instead write "resting witch face." It was said about a secretary at the building, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And I wanted to know, is that being done because the book is YA, air quote, young adult, or is it more of a thematic and foreshadowing choice?
Yes. That one I can answer. That one I can answer. When that line was written, I will say that I was unclear on who knows what. But I also was advised for this book, for that book, to and for the audience and all of that stuff to steer away from some of the swearing and all of that stuff. So I did censor the book. There were even the part, one of the pivotal moments in the book where he says, "Crap, it was shit." And
I thought so. It's crap. I'm not gonna lie to you. Crap felt a little awkward. I remember stumbling.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
So I had to be in mind with my audience, but and then and lore changed a little bit. But in book 2 and going forward, well, in book 1 you hear the term magic born. Mm-hmm. Magic born. They're born from magic. It's lore that we have the term, the species called the Mercenada, which you'll learn a lot more in book 2.
I am a mercenada.
A Mercenada, and basically, the Mercenada. I mean, they would identify. I mean, if they were asked directly, even if it's never said in the book, but they would identify as witches and wizards. Mm-hmm. the druids and all of that stuff, they use magic, and it's a big deal for Caleb because Caleb is like, I understand how Nephilim use their powers.
Mhm.
I understand where that comes from, but this doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
So that's a big debate in booktube.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I love when worlds go into the nitty gritty of their magic system and their lore,
Mhm.
and fine details are carved out, and very well defined rules and intricacies get dug into.
Mhm.
That's that good shit.
It's it it's tough. That is
Yeah.
world building. World building is hard.
Well, my friend, it just so happens that I've got a video playlist here on my channel on YouTube that you can go to for tips anytime.
Nice. I did that on purpose. It was a plug. You'll pay me later. No, world building is hard. But it's so much fun
Yeah,
discovering those things too. Because at some point, at some point, you set the ball in motion, and you because of that, other things have to happen.
Yep.
Mhm.
You said this. If this is true, this has to be true. If this
Right.
is true, this has to be true. So, stumbling across
Yep.
some of that stuff, it's been a lot of fun because it's informed me about stuff about my universe that I didn't even know was there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the logical process of thinking is filling in the gaps. Well, if A, then most certainly B, because you know the constraints of your world and how things would
Mhm.
naturally logically flow. And yeah, you can fill in a lot of gaps in your lore using that basic
Mhm.
technique right there.
Yep.
I certainly did. And one of the great things about that is it allows you to fearlessly just start writing.
Yeah.
Because as long as you have some core principles of your world, you don't need to know every little fucking detail. So as long as you have your core principles written out and you stick to
Mhm.
those, you will not paint yourself into a corner later because you had
Absolutely.
a framework that you built from, and that's all you need. As long as you stay within the framework, or as long as any deviation from the framework is masterfully planned, because you can get away with it if you do it very well, but it has to be good.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has to make sense.
Apple.
Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
to make logical sense. If you deviate
Mhm.
from it, it has to make logical sense. It can't just be because.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's one of the things to go to an anime. Just as a quick aside into
Mhm.
our friends over in the East, there's this anime Soul Eater,
Mhm.
and the finale, the main character is just one big fucking Mary Sue asshole Deus Ex Machina clusterfuck, and it's like, no, that ending makes zero goddamn sense.
It's a huge fu to the followers.
Yes,
You
exactly.
know, it's like
Exactly.
stick to the rules that you created.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I think so many of the classic stories that our culture holds up are soft magic systems,
Mhm.
because it's so easy to stay inside your world's rules when you
Mhm.
design a soft magic system, because there's a lot more leeway. And so I would argue it's a smidge easier to world build when you have a soft magic system in place for a fantasy, but it does allow you more opportunities sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's the trade-off you got to make, is like, well, as a writer, do I want to take maybe the easier route on this and be able to get away with more ridiculous bullshit?
Mhm.
And that's a careful consideration that has to be made, because those decisions thematically and flavor wise affect your story from the root all the way to the leaf.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. And it's cool to just as well see what you can do with that. With soft magic systems, what is cool is that you can take one small thing, but the intrigue becomes, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to use that? Because there's so many different ways that you can use one little thing.
Right.
I'm always intrigued by that.
That's one of the fun things that I like about fantasy is the way that some people set up the systems in their world.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like getting to look into the author's brain and seeing how they think logic works. Because by analyzing the way their system is set up, you can map out the thematic and symbolic ties that hold that person's logic together.
Yeah.
And you could use someone's novel to potentially decode their psychology if you were good enough. And I think that's just fucking fascinating.
I love it. One of the things that I like, one of the stories that I like right now, just because of the world building, in my opinion, is Star Child by Leo Petrarca. It's either Petrarca or Petracci. I'm not Italian, so I don't know. But the intricacies of his world building, it's just I love it. I love it. I recommend it. I recommend the story for the simple fact of the way that he's built his world and how he explains it from chapter 1.
Very nice.
Yeah,
I love. Yeah, like you said, I'm a sucker for good world building. Both world building is like, it's either the top or my second favorite thing as both a reader and a writer.
yes,
like it's so big for me.
Yeah, I love it as a reader. I think that I enjoyed writing book 2 more than I enjoyed writing book 1 because the world building rules were already set.
Mm-hmm.
So then I could just play.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still learning things. The whole thing, you're learning things. But, I mean, I wasn't teaching myself as well.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would argue that you're not done world building, though.
No.
Because I could see a lot
Are you
of...
really ever?
But I would argue that there might be a few places that if I just had to guess, I don't know for certain, but if I had to guess, I'd say as you write forward, you might find, oh, this is a whole blind spot that I hadn't noticed in my build so far. I have to figure out what goes here.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet you're going to find a few of those.
I'm fairly certain I will, just because that's the nature of life.
Agreed.
And
make no mistake, I found plenty of my own. So
yeah, no, that's the nature of life. That is, and even still, even with this, I wouldn't even attempt to say that I was done world building. I love that I'm still learning it, but I also love that I get to play with it a little bit more as well.
Yeah,
that I get to, you know, have fun within that world, and in the world building as well.
Mm-hmm.
Largely, my second book. It's funny because largely my second book was that too. Just getting to really go buck wild and pedal to the metal adventure. Mm-hmm. That's what my second book is too. Man, I had a good time, except for that one scene that I had to write, but we don't talk about that scene.
Oh. We don't talk about Bruno.
Oh my God. Hey, man, to talk about that, this is a kind of off topic, but well, actually, I mean, it's about characterization and stuff. Yeah. I realized that whole thing, basically the reason why they ostracized him was because he told the truth.
Yes. Yes, he told the truth, and people don't like to hear the truth, so then they blamed it on him.
Yeah.
You know, which is what you often do with a person. I mean, in psychology, it's called the scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you often do with that person is you ostracize them. They have to be the bad guy in order for this family, and it is an abusive relationship. And
Right.
it's an abusive family.
And then by the end of it, basically, he was supposed to apologize to everybody, and this was supposed to be okay. I'm like, no, this is not okay. This is supposed to be a kids' movie.
I did like that they did that he felt like he had to apologize, and almost all of them did say no.
Yeah.
Like Juliet the most said, I never had a problem with you.
Right.
But it is funny. I did love it. I saw a meme that said, people said, that of people saying, she didn't apologize, or she didn't. All she did was say sorry. And all ethnic people from Black and Hispanic background said, she talked about her problems. She acknowledged it.
Right.
Yeah, that is a thing over in that culture. Sure.
It's a huge thing where it's like it's a step forward, and I love that it was a story about family, and that it's about the foundation and keeping family together, and not about the gift, which is what the antagonist was making the story about. So I could. There's a whole psychological course that can be done on that show.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and just to throw back to the beginning of that whole thing, they didn't like him because he told them the truth. Yeah, Galatians.
You have a puppers.
I have two.
Wait,
they both came in. They're both pit bull mixes.
Oh yeah, that's right. You mentioned them the last time we spoke.
Come here.
That's right.
Come here, Rika. Come here. She's come here, Rika.
She's like, now you'll be camera shy.
Come here. You. She's like, this is a trick. I got a French fry.
Oh.
No, I got a French fry. She's like, this is a trick. She's camera shy.
Oh.
I've never met a dog who could distinguish a camera. That's amazing.
I don't know what's going on. I think she notices something. She never cares. She always comes and tries to get in the camera, and now she doesn't want to.
I wonder if it's because she hears our voices coming through your headset and she's weirded out by it. She's like, "Where are these people?"
Probably that.
Strange disembodied voices.
She's got really sensitive hearing.
Oh.
She hears things, and she'll pop her head up, and start barking.
I know pit bulls are like that. Pit bulls seem to have that not only a keen sense of hearing, but they're very skittish about what they hear. Like everything draws their attention.
Mm-hmm.
She's very skittish.
Yeah.
She got scared by her own shadow yesterday. So.
Oh no.
I fucking love dogs.
I did want to say. So yes, book 1 is very censored. It does, as we get further into the series, it does change.
Nice.
As they get older, and same, yes. I expect that. My entry point right now, schools love to invite me to come into schools and read. So I was like, I didn't want to cut my reader base off at the ankles.
Right.
Smart move.
I hope by book 4, I have a little bit more agency in what I can do.
Yeah.
That's because, man, I won't say it's censored because it's not, but that is much more tame compared to this, which is even much more tame
tame than 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know exactly what you mean with as you go. Just the self-restraint gets harder, and you want to do more with your story. You want to explore how far you can push the envelope.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, we are going on 2:45 here quickly.
But
So
the discussion has been so good, though.
It has been a great discussion. I'm just making the point that, all of us have other things that, eventually I have to piss. Eventually I have to eat.
Preferably not at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Oh, you.
Crazy John.
Right. Oh man. Well. Well, we like your flavor of crazy, so we will have to have you back.
I would love to come
back.
Thank you so
you
much.
are welcome to come back, especially, I might have to pick up. I might just be invested enough to pick up the second book.
Well, yeah.
That would be worth having you back for.
Do it.
The second one's out, right?
It comes out next week.
It comes out next week. There you go. So there you go.
Awesome.
The Last Angel Warrior by John Wells III. His sequel is coming out in a week. What were you about to say, John?
I'd say it's so much. I mean, I love the first book. Don't get me wrong. It's so much better.
I respect that. I sincerely respect that. One author, one artist to another. You can look, because when I wrote this, I was like, man, that's fucking top notch. And then I wrote this, and I was like, I could have done so much better.
Exactly. So I'm so happy, and I know that when I finish the third one, I'll look at this one and I'll say, yeah, I could have done better. But
we grow. We grow as authors, and yet
only keep growing.
Exactly, and that's fun for readers too. As if you're out there in the audience and you think, well, I shouldn't even start because I know it'll suck. No, because as long as it meets a certain base level of quality, put it out and let your readers watch you grow. A lot of readers still like following authors and seeing the progression.
Yeah. Well, it's like an instructor used to tell me all the time. Novels are like pancakes and children. You can always make more.
Yes. Yes.
I like where that guy's head was at.
Pancakes and
waffles, but I like where it's at.
Yep.
So, John, why don't you tell them where they can find you, and we'll start wrapping this up.
Okay. You can find me. All over the place. You can find me on Facebook at the Caleb Andrews Chronicles. www.facebook.com/the Caleb Andrews Chronicles. You can find me on Instagram at j.waymanwells. You can find me on TikTok at John Wells the author. Please follow me on TikTok. I'm trying to grow my base. And I do post. I do content. I'm fairly new to the TikTok game, but you can find me. My books are on Amazon. Just look up The Last Angel Warrior or The Heir of Ambrose. You'll find them. And I think that's everything.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, John, man, it's been a damn good conversation. You've been a good sport, and we've had a good time. Of course, you can find me and Kate's stuff in the link tree down in the description. Please do check out John. As I said, finished his book. It's worth a read.
It's amazing.
And I imagine younger audiences would like it a lot. And I will be doing a review of it on my channel.
Same.
I imagine as well. So, yeah. Go check out his work. Get done with book 1 in time for the sequel release in a month. And thank you all so much for being here.
Binge read that shit.
This has been the...
You are a genius.
segment. And all of you, man, take care of yourselves. Be well. And we're out of here.